She's Katy Montgomery. He's Justin Joseph. These best friends are serving subpoenas to bad advice weekly with Wrong Way Forward. Now, here's Katy and Justin.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Wrong Way Forward. My name is Katy Montgomery, and I'm here with my best friend, Justin Joseph. And we're here to take advice and tear it down a little bit. Today, we're broadcasting from another location. Today, Justin, I'm in Orange Beach, Alabama. You've been here with me before. We did a few college trips down here.
Yeah, that's the place where I went out late on this beach. Remember when I got pictures back, I said, it looks like I'm wearing a skin suit.
Yeah. Well, that was your first mistake. That was the wrong way forward. You never let anyone take a picture of you in a swimsuit. You know, yeah. I mean, that's good advice.
God, that was a long time ago. That we were in college then.
And we had a friend we called him Pukey. And we all had a mutual friend that lived in Pensacola. And Pensacola's like an hour away. And Pukey would just get in his car every day and just kind of go try to search for Pukey. Remember? Yeah. And Graper went with us, and Nikki, and
there are some good memories because that's only a couple hours from New Orleans, right? Like 4 maybe.
Good times. Yeah, but I'm not as technologically, strained here. I've got solid internet. I've got a desk. I'm set up. So we are planning to hopefully have no technical errors. But what we're going to do today, Justin, is we're going to jump in to something that really just drives me insane. And this is the concept of cutting line. And so, in America, in the UK, we have a very, particular way of queuing, respecting the line. And so kind of the question is, and this was on cleveland.com, it's an Ask Yachty column, is it okay to cut in line in front of others? So let me just read this to you. Is it okay to cut in line in front of others? Have you ever been somewhere that you had to stand in line and out of nowhere, someone just cuts in front of you? Am I invisible? Do you really not see me? I was at a function once, standing in line, chatting with my friend when somebody behind me spotted somebody they knew and proceeded to have a conversation with them. Sure, I can deal with you talking around me, but then as their conversation continued, this person proceeded to get closer and closer until they were next to that person in front of me. Sometimes in these situations, they eventually look around and realize that they're with people who are waiting in line and they just got in front of. They are apologetic and get back to the spot in line they moved from. Other times, they either pretend that they didn't see you or just don't care. Is it okay to make them aware of what they did, or should you just ignore them? Shake your head and continue to wait in line. The choice is up to you, but I have let people know, excuse me, the line starts back there. Or do you realize that you just cut in front of me? Nobody likes to wait a line, especially when the lines don't seem to move. Chatting with someone that you know really does make the wait more bearable, but don't assume that it's okay just to cut in line. Time is valuable to all of us. Waiting is never fun, but be patient and you will eventually get to the front of the line. So, Justin, what is your reaction to people who cut in line?
Well, as you can imagine, if I've been there, blood pressure's boiling, heart's racing, and the words are just forming together in my head. And so I'm right on the edge of being ready to commit murder. So I think it's the wrong way forward. But B, when it's happened to me, as you can imagine, I always say something. And the question is, am I going to say something in a nice way or say something in a mean way? It just depends on how angry I am.
Well, it's very interesting because I have lived in cultures, for example, China, that doesn't necessarily respect the sense of a line the way we do in America. It's just a different culture. So I remember they used to have these egg and bread sandwiches, and I would go get in line to get one in the morning, and everyone would just rush, and it would become chaos, and I would start to lose my mind. Or I remember one time I was traveling with some of our mutual friends in Greece, and we were in an airport, and there was no sense of structure. So I always try to first be very aware of my own cultural upbringing and recognizing I'm in another culture where it's just not kind of part of the culture to respect, or to have kind of this sense of order in a line. But I can't stand a line cutter. And,
Me either.
And I'm clearly down in Birmingham. And so I fly on a small airplane. So this is the kind of airplane where you check your luggage, right before you get on the airplane. And when you get off the airplane, they give you your suitcase. I don't know if you've ever been on that small of an airplane.
Yeah.
But I got upgraded because I always fly on American. And so I got to sit in first class. So I was the first person off the airplane. So the concept is you stand in line And then as people come off the plane, they get further in line. And so if you're at the back of the plane, you're going to be at the back of the line. It's going to take you a while to get your bag because you just
Right.
physically can't see it. So this man got off the plane and immediately stood right next to me. First of all, in the area you're not supposed to stand. And also,
was there a big line at this point?
yes, and not respecting the line. And I said, I just want to let you know someone just got in trouble. We're standing there because it's where they're unloading the bags. And so I think it's a safety precaution. But I think what I've noticed about myself is the sense of entitlement triggers me. And the fact that you think that you don't have to follow the community standards and norms and that the order does not apply to you, that's what gets my blood a boiling. I'm logical enough to say, okay, he's going to get his bag 2 seconds before me. But it's the fact that you asshole, you think you don't have to operate under these community standards? Go to hell. It really
100%.
gets me. Yeah.
Now let me ask you this: so he was cutting you, or he was cutting the person behind you? Or
He was cutting me and basically the entire line. I mean,
would you have said something if he just kind of snuck in behind you and it wasn't?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I would have said something. I think for me, it's just, what energy do I have and who is it? If it's an elderly person, I'm kind of like, okay, I mean, you're old, get away with it. Right. But I would say I might say something, or I mean, I can give a pretty dirty look. But I would say I'm probably maybe 5, 6 times out of 10, I could say, oh, the line started over there. Because I do think sometimes people make innocent mistakes.
Yeah, and that's totally understandable. I did the other day, in fact. Well, no, I did ask. I said, is this the line? And they said, no, it's back there. Because I think I forget what the circumstances were, but I went to some place and I couldn't figure it out. And I did say, is this line? And they said, no, it starts back there. And
Yeah. But even the example that like Yachty gave, if like you were in line, if you and Josh were in line and I showed up, and I was talking to y'all, I would literally, before anyone could even accuse me or even kind of assign a motive to me, I would say, I'm not cutting in line, y'all. I'm just chatting with them and I'll go get in line. Like I would even just cut that off before that even kind of entered the discussion.
Or you could ask them and say, these are my friends. Is it okay if I stand here? And if I'm in that situation, 9 times out of 10, I'm saying no problem.
Yes. And I mean, I think people who have been consistently listening to us, I also think the age of manners and civility and community norms is going to hell in a handbasket. I do not think that it is the same as it once was. I think some of our leaders aren't demonstrating, good manners and good community norms. And so I think it's becoming more and more of a problem.
Like decorum's out the window is what you're saying.
Yes. And what I get nervous about is, we've heard of these horrible things about somebody getting cut off in traffic and then somebody chasing them down with a gun.
Road rage.
Right?
I'm watching this show on Netflix called Beef. Have you heard of this show?
Well, I loved season 1. And so I'm having to kind of get myself ready because I was so attached to the characters in season 1. So I'm not ready yet for the season 2. How is it?
Oh, I just started the show, but that's the whole premise of season 1 is that there was bad behavior in a car and she wouldn't move. And then that's, for those of you who have not seen this show, it's called Beef, and it's about a bad interaction that starts at the beginning of the show, which essentially involves something about line cutting. They're each in their cars, and how they then just go after each other the rest of the show, and how it snowballs, etc.
But I mean, I could see this happening, in a line at a concert, at an event, and it just really escalating. So I think that's a piece of advice, and just kind of like a lens to put on it is like, people are whacked and people are getting to this certain point of tension. I think you got to really read the room before you say something, because you never know how someone's going to react in this day and age.
100%. What about, and we've talked about this before, like when I got cut in line by someone who was in a wheelchair, what about are those situations okay?
Well, I think it's interesting because I really thought to myself, is it ever okay to cut in line? And, and I would think, life or death, definitely.
Sure.
You can cut in line. It really doesn't bother me. Like the other day, I was at this great restaurant in Birmingham called Bottega, and I went to go to the bathroom, and a woman and her daughter got there before me, and there was only one stall. Mm-hmm. And she looked at me and she goes, "We take forever. Please go ahead." She had a small child. I love that too. I love it. Like when I'm in line and somebody just has one item, I'm like, please go ahead. Right. But I think you need to wait for like the introduction. I think if you're holding a spot for someone, Holding a spot makes me very anxious. I don't like doing that. I don't like telling people no. That doesn't make me feel comfortable. But I think if you are holding a spot, that's fair too.
Yeah. On the other side of the break, we're going to talk about when cutting line is okay. There are some situations. We started kind of getting into it here. We'll talk about that on the other side. We'll be right back with The Wrong Way Forward.
You've been listening to Wrong Way Forward, where bad advice goes to die and then gets resurrected just so we can roast it again.
If you're enjoying the chaos, hit like and subscribe and come back every Thursday for new episodes.
Have a new topic or some disastrously bad advice you want to dissect? Email wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. Include your contact info.
Now back to Wrong Way Forward.
Roasting the worst advice ever. Welcome back to the Katy and Justin podcast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward, where we're talking about the age-old problem of cutting in line. When we left off, we were talking about there really aren't a lot of situations where it's okay to do that. I brought up the question, and this has happened to me before, where someone came up in a wheelchair or was handicapped, and the question is that okay when they cut in line? And Katy, what was your response to that? Does that bother you? Do you think they get special privileges?
I mean, I think, again, I would make assumptions if I was the person, in the wheelchair. I probably would have said, do you mind if I go ahead? Is that okay? Mm-hmm. But I just don't think that would be a battle that I would decide to pick. I think I would just be like, go ahead. I mean, it's a lot of times, I think I also, without them asking, I volunteer. So if I see like a woman with multiple children, trying to get on an airplane, I'm like, please go ahead.
Right.
Like that's the other thing that drives me crazy is, now we have boarding groups, and I know people are more obsessed than ever because they want to get their luggage on the flight because people don't want to pay to check. But I am like, we are all going to the same place. And if you want to trigger me, get up out of your seat when the plane lands and then start walking. And again, not respecting the line to get off the plane. I mean, that literally makes my blood boil. And someone will always look and be like, I'm trying to catch a connecting flight. And I'm like, you literally saved 3 seconds. Because what you've done now is pissed everybody off, and they're going to put their big ass right in front of you to particularly not allow you to get through.
Yeah, and there's situations where when a plane's landed, we're in there really late, and they'll say, if we're going to let some people who are trying to make connections go first, please stay seated. I've been on those planes before, and I think that's fine.
I do too, but guess what? People don't stay seated.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, this is what it's kind of like, it's not all about you. It's like, and I think that's the thing about cutting in line, is it's like, be aware and cognizant of other people, their time, their energy, their effort. And so, it goes both ways. Standing up when you don't have a connecting flight and not letting that person get through, or cutting line, and trying to kind of, get ahead. It's just a real sense of entitlement. I think it's the complete wrong way forward. And I wonder what gets a person to that point in life. Is that because they were raised with a silver spoon in their mouth? Is that because their parents doted on them? Is that because they never were given any boundaries? Is that because they're narcissists? Like, who acts like that? And how do you get to that point? Because I find it just so crazy that I'm like, how do you get to be that type of person?
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, I feel like it's happening more and more just because people feel so disempowered that this is one of the areas where they can feel some level of power. So I agree. We're seeing it more and more out there.
Yeah.
So changing gears a little bit, let's talk about the Met Gala happening the other night. Did you see some of the outfits? What did you think?
I have to tell you, I thought this was one of the ugliest Met Galas of all time. I really did. To me, I did not, and I understand the theme. I understand fashion. I understand pushing. I understand avant-garde. There was nothing that I necessarily fell in love with. I thought the Zach Posen dress for Gap was,
that was cool.
Beautiful. I thought some pieces.
I thought Nicole Kidman. Did you see Nicole Kidman? That woman does not. She looked just stunning.
Well, and I think she also, it's so funny. My sister and I are watching this show on Apple called Margot's Got Money Problems.
Yeah.
She also works her ass off. I mean, she
constantly.
Must be on a set 300 days a year.
100%.
But, here's the thing. I don't want to see Jeff Bezos' wife. I don't want to see Sergey from
She
Google.
had the boob shelf again. Did you see?
Of course she had the boob shelf. She can't go anywhere without a boob shelf. But I don't want to see Mark Zuckerberg. I don't want to see,
Was Sergey.
Yes, he was there with Priscilla, his wife. Give me the famous people, give me the designers, give me the people who are creating art and culture and fashion. I don't want to see, the head of Google, in his suit was heinous. I'm like, get those people. I am so sick of the tech billionaires. It's like, go make your money, make AI, make my, internet work in a basement. But you know what? Get the hell off my red carpet.
What do you think about all the controversy over Jeff Bezos, like basically buying the Met Gala that evening? I mean, they made big donation. There was protesters. There was word on the street that Anna Wintour, who, for people who may or may not know who she is, she's the one who organizes the Met Gala, called an emergency crisis meeting because she did not expect the pushback on that.
That is crazy that she did not expect the pushback.
He's really a hated man. I mean, people hate him.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Well, I mean, he's killed the Washington Post, right? Mm-hmm. If you're an environmentalist, if you think about giving back, if you think about, depending on your politics, what he's done to pay off to kind of be in good standing, with the current administration. Some people find that very distasteful. So, I'm a little torn on this, right? It's fair process. It's due process. It's like, here are the sponsorships if you can pay. I think if they have very explicit rules, about who can and who cannot, kind of like when you have a morals clause, when you're, a celebrity or an anchor on the news, but I think you've got to be very clear up front, very transparent about what your rules are. The other thing is, would the conversation around this change if it said, look, the Met was going under, the Met was going to no longer be able to provide, this couture fashion for, everyday citizens to go see without the funding? Would we then take the funding, right? And so I do think it's important for people to be sponsors of the arts. But it used to be, again, let's talk about what it used to look like. It used to be quieter. Yes, people put their names on buildings, but they didn't go front and center and walk, the carpet. They didn't donate to per se to have like their wife front and center on a boob shelf. What do you think?
Well, I totally agree. I thought it was interesting because, at the beginning, Anna Wintour, Lauren Sánchez, Jeff Bezos' wife, and Nicole Kidman, who the last two are the chairs, were kind of hanging out. And it looked to me, you could just tell in looking at Lauren Sánchez how uncomfortable she was, because even though she's married to the most wealthy man alive, she's still out of her element. She's with people who are creatives, who have accomplished something besides marrying well. And you could tell she was uncomfortable with the whole thing. And I think that's pretty much how she lives her life, because she's running in those circles, but the only thing she's contributing is the fact that she's married a man with a lot of money.
Yeah. But, some people are starting to think, what's going to be interesting is, if we see a backlash on something like the Met Gala, like if the administration were to change, or, we were to go back to kind of like, because if you look at the mayor of New York City, he did not attend. And he is, a populist, a socialist, however you want to kind of define him. And I think he ended up spending time with garment workers. And I think he was trying to make a statement of like, yes, art, fashion, that's an important industry, but, we're celebrating, multimillionaires, billionaires wearing outfits that are, the cost of a car or the cost of a down payment for a home. And I think he was trying to make a statement. It's going to be interesting to see, will the Met Gala maintain its kind of, cachet long term?
Have you ever actually been to the Costume Institute?
You know what? I'm embarrassed to say I don't think I have. We should do that.
We should do. I know. I would like to see. I think there's some really good documentaries on the guy, the famous designer Brown. What's his name? Tom Brown.
Tom Brown. Mm-hmm.
His husband is the one that runs the Costume
I've seen that.
Have you seen design? And so, just looking at the artistic, I think museums are just fascinating when they're set up and all of that. Anyway, we'll be right back on the other side. We'll talk more about celebrity bad behavior. We'll be right back on Wrong Way Forward. Thanks for streaming Wrong Way Forward, the weekly reminder that advice is usually free for a reason. We call out bad advice wherever it hides: boardrooms, break rooms, and even book clubs.
Enjoying this dumpster fire? Like, subscribe, and check back every Thursday for new episodes. Want us to roast your favorite piece of nonsense? Email us at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to include your contact info. We're not psychic, just judgmental. And now, back to Wrong Way Forward.
Roasting the worst advice ever. Welcome back to the Katy and Justin.
And we're back, and we're just going to keep talking a little bit about celebrity bad behavior. So we've been talking about cutting in line. What is the kind of celebrity version of cutting in line? So we're taping this to later air and broadcast, so it might not be as relevant. But Justin, what do you think about Katy Perry? She kissed a girl and she liked it. We're
apparently.
Hearing about Ruby Rose and Anna Kendrick. I mean, that sounds like some wrong way forward. It might not be good behavior.
I agree. It sounds like she's right on the edge of being Me Too'd out. I mean, all these stories, I always think when there's smoke, there's fire, and you're starting to hear these stories. Like Katy Perry said that she, let me see how I can say this tastefully, that she went to a party and Katy Perry finger banged her cleavage. That's the word she used. And that sounds cute and fun. And Anna Kendrick was laughing about it, but it's bad behavior. And then it came out the other day that she had kept smacking Justin Bieber's rear end when he was younger. I mean, there's just all these stories that she's over-sexualized, and it sounds like Me Too-ish behavior.
Well, and I should have probably looked this up. Didn't she come from a fairly conservative religious upbringing? So, I mean, that shows you, if you go to too much of an extreme, the pendulum's just going to swing the other way, right?
Right. And she's actually being sued, right? By you. I think you mentioned, what's her name? Amber Rose?
Ruby Rose.
Ruby Rose.
Yes.
Yeah,
I think
she's
she's
being
an
sued by her
Australian
for
actress.
sexual assault. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but, she's posting those pictures with, Justin Trudeau, and she's, all over the space. But, yeah, you know what? Here's the thing. I liked her music. I mean, I never bought it, but,
Same.
I liked it. It was catchy. But then when she went up in SpaceX and she just was such an asshole, I was kind of like, that's when she turned me off.
Did that ruin it for you, for all those women who went up there in that?
Well, I still like, what is Gail King? I still like Gail King. But, I mean, it's just like Katy Perry. First of all, the outfits. I just thought it was so gross. Again, talk about sexualizing science and space. But, I mean, when she got down and kissed the ground, and, I just kind of was like, there are some people who work their whole life and they study and they practice and they do this. And then you're just kind of, being entitled. It's just like kind of wanting use of it. And so I think that's bad behavior.
100%. I thought it was interesting. They got a lot of pushback on that. And I think the criticism was, what was it, like a $2 billion trip to go up and basically float around for a few minutes. And then I think the pushback was, or I think what they said in response to pushback was, well, this is furthering science or something. But, there's a lot of I don't know if did you watch all the NASA stuff when they just went up to the moon recently?
So here's the thing. I feel bad because I just really didn't. But I was listening the New York Times Daily. It was really cute. They put a call out for what questions do your kids have for the 4 astronauts who went up and have come back. And it was really cute. And they said they got like thousands of call-ins, and then they kind of cherry picked the questions. So I love the idea of it. I love that it's coming back. I love that kids are super engaged in it. I love that people are enthralled in it. I just happen to not be one of them.
Yeah, I couldn't leave the TV. I was so fascinated by it. And I guess my biggest thought is that's real science and real people who are really accomplishing something. And so it kind of makes the Blue Orchard stuff look silly. Well, that's this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward. Thank you all for watching. Katy, give out our handles.
Well, we would love to hear from you. Our email is wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. We hope to hear from you soon.
All right, that's a wrap on this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward. Remember, the only thing worse than taking bad advice is giving it.
If you've liked what you've heard, like, subscribe, or follow us wherever you stream podcasts. And if you've got a topic or need some advice we'll probably regret giving, email us at wrongwayforwardpodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Wrong Way Forward.